What if I told you that there was a secret trick that millionaires use to manage their debt? And you can use the exact same trick in order to pay down your debt faster. It's like turbo boost for debt payment. Well, that's what I'm going to discuss in this video. And whether you use the snowball method or the avalanche method or any other debt repayment strategy, this is guaranteed to turbo boost your results. But before I get into it, my name's Nolan Mathias, and if you want to thrive financially, this is the place for you. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button so more people like you can see this video. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who subscribes. Okay, so let's discuss the optimal order to pay down debt. And there are all kinds of methods out there. Of course, there's the Dave Ramsey method, which is the snowball method, which tells you to pay off your smallest debt first and then keep paying off your smaller debts until you get to the biggest ones. And then there's the avalanche method that focuses on the higher interest rate debts and paying those off first. And there's reasons why you should consider both. Obviously, the Dave Ramsey method is very much based on human psychology, which I believe in, and allowing small wins allow people to feel like they're having some success. So paying off that small debt first makes a ton of sense, then you move on to the next one, and because you're building on your success at each stage, obviously you are more likely to succeed. I think it's a great strategy. But what I'm going to show you at the end here is a way to turbo boost that strategy that will make your debt pay down significantly faster. And I've got a tool that you can download as well. Now, the avalanche method, on the other hand, looks at interest rates. And this is really important because obviously if you have high interest rate debt, the amount of interest that you're accumulating on that debt can stack up fast. And obviously if you're focusing on the snowball method and paying off small debt first, but you have a really massive credit card that has a 20% interest rate, well, in theory, you can actually end up accumulating more debt than what you're actually paying down, making the situation worse. So you really should consider both strategies, and if you are in a situation where you have a massive amount of debt, the most important thing that you need to consider is the fact that your mindset needs to change. The way you think about money needs to change, your habits need to change, and you need to stop spending more than you make. In fact, you probably need to cut down to spending almost nothing in order to get out of the problem that you found yourself in. Getting out of debt does not happen unless you change your mindset about both making money and spending money. And while it starts with changing your mindset, you also need to focus on building a new skill set or more knowledge around debt repayment and how to manage your money. And you also need to make sure you change your habits, the habits that cause you to spend more than you make. Whether that's turning your car physically away from the shopping mall so you don't enter it, or putting in a software that blocks your online shopping habits, or freezing your credit cards in a block of ice so that you have to wait at least 24 hours to consider any charges that you want to make on those cards. But regardless, the amount of debt that you have is your responsibility. It is the choices that you have made that have gotten you there, and it is also your responsibility to change your mindset so that you can get out of that debt and so that you can thrive financially. Now, all that being said, that isn't what you came here for. What you came here for is the secret method that millionaires use to manage their debt. And the key to the secret is understanding cash flow. Because regardless of if you use the snowball method or if you use the avalanche method, the one thing that can accelerate your debt repay down is if you also pay attention to the cash flow that comes from paying off specific debts. And that's why I've created the cash flow factor. Now, I've put this together in a spreadsheet so that you can look at this and help you better understand what I mean. Okay, before I tell you more about the cash flow factor, I was just on the way to edit this video and I had this thought. What if we as a community named the cash flow factor? Called it something like the ice vortex or the polar vortex or the blizzard method. What if we named it together? Well, you tell me in the comments section below, what do you think this method should be called? But let me use a simple example to explain it first. Let's say you're following either the debt snowball or the avalanche method approach, and you have two debts that are fairly similar in size. Now, in the snowball method, whichever one is smaller is the one that you pick. But what if you had two debts that were very similar in size, but if you paid off one before the other, you would free up a significant amount of cash flow, accelerating how fast you could pay off the second debt. That's what the cash flow factor accounts for. And the same for the avalanche method. Let's say you have two debts, similar size, similar interest rates, but paying off one would open up significantly more cash flow, allowing you to pay off the second significantly faster. Again, that's what the cash flow factor accounts for. So what we're doing is we're sticking to the same strategy that we have, and I'll show you a cash flow factor strategy that I've created as well, but you're using a little bit of critical thinking in order to figure out what the best strategy actually is, even though you may not be following your debt repayment method strategies exactly. So let me show you what this looks like in the tool that I've created for you. And I'll put a link in the description below so you can download it. So this is the cash flow factor calculator. And what it does is it determines which of your debts have the highest cash flow factor. So in other words, which of your debts have the highest payments relative to the balances? And by choosing these debts to pay them off first, it will open up more cash flow, which will allow you to pay off subsequent debts even faster. And the way you use this is quite simple. You simply enter in your debts, the interest rate you're paying, the amount that you owe, the minimum payment, and it will calculate for you the cash flow factor. And visually, it will show you which of your debts, if you were to pay them off, open up the most cash flow relative to the amount that you owe. And as you can see in this example, there's a car loan at a very low interest rate that, if it were to be paid off, opens up a significant amount of cash flow. So visually, you can see exactly which debts you should be focusing on first. And it also ranks the debts based on which ones have the highest cash flow factors. So in this case, let's say we were using the snowball method, and you had a credit card that had a $3,300 balance. Now, the snowball method would suggest that you should pay it off because it is the lowest balance. However, when we put the cash flow factor into play, what we can see is that we have another debt that is fairly similar in size, $3,800. It's that car loan. It has a payment that is significantly more, around $500. So that $500 that we would be freeing up in cash flow would be able to pay off the next debt, which would be the credit card, in about 7 months. 3,500 divided by 500 is 7 months. Now, if we were to use the snowball method without the cash flow factor, well, the story would change. So in this case, if we were to pay off the credit card first, that would open up $100 a month in cash flow, which subsequently that freed up cash flow would only allow us to pay off this car loan in about 38 months. So in the snowball method, typically you would choose the $3,300 debt to pay off first, but because we're using the cash flow factor method, we know that if we pay off this car loan, it's going to allow us to pay off all of this debt in a significantly shorter period of time. Now, let's assume we're using the avalanche method. The avalanche method is when you pay off the highest interest rate loans first. Well, in this scenario, you'd look at that $3,300 credit card again, and you'd see that it has a 19% interest rate, so you'd probably want to pay that off first. But you'll also notice that there is a credit card with a 15% interest rate that has a significantly higher cash flow factor. And if you were to pay this one off, even though it has a slightly higher balance, if you were to pay it off first, again, it opens up significantly more cash flow than paying off the other credit card, and subsequently that will lead you to be able to pay off both credit cards significantly faster because you focused on the one with the higher payment relative to the balance first. Now, obviously, these are hypothetical numbers. You need to put your own numbers in here, and typically credit cards are going to be pretty similar in their cash flow factors. This is just one that I'm using for an example. But where this becomes highly beneficial is if you have personal loans, if you have car loans that are close to being paid off, that have payments that were established based on the original balances, not on what you owe right now. And it will be really easy to see if there's any of those opportunities just by plugging your numbers into the spreadsheet. Visually, just by looking at the green bars, you'll be able to tell which of your debts have the highest payments relative to the outstanding balances and where your opportunities are to turbo boost your debt paydown. Now, that being said, I do believe that there is an optimal order to pay down your debt that is better than the avalanche and the snowball method. And keep in mind that debt paydown is more art than it is science. Yes, you can run the numbers and you can determine exactly what the best thing to do is, but a lot of people won't do that because of human psychology. So really, when you look at any of these methods, you have to look at it from the perspective of which one am I most likely to stick to, and choose that one and stick to it until you've got all of your debt paid down. But here's what I would do if I were trying to optimize my debt paydown. I would pay off the debts with the highest cash flow factor first, opening up more cash flow to pay off the other debts. And where multiple debts have similar cash flow factors, I would pay off the higher interest rate ones first. That way I'm minimizing the amount of interest that I'm accumulating. So for example, if I'm looking at my credit card versus my personal loan here, one has a cash flow factor of 5%, the other has a cash flow factor of 6%. These are pretty similar. I'm going to focus on paying off the credit card first because that will prevent me from accumulating more interest. And as a result, I'll pay off all the debt faster. It's really that simple. Now, there's a couple other caveats to this whole thing, and I highly encourage you to seek financial advice, whether you're looking to pay down debt, whether you're looking to invest, or do anything else. Do not watch a 12-minute YouTube video and expect that you know enough to not make any mistakes. Oh, and if you want to see more videos about paying off debt, saving money, and improving your credit, make sure you check out one of these ones right here.